See what I mean? Okay, so the snare drum that I'm using today is just a typical 14-inch Pearl export snare. It's the standard snare that comes with any Pearl export kit. And to be honest, I don't really like the way they sound straight out of the box. So I've already improved it by changing the top head to an Evans G2, a coated one, and I've added a couple of moon gels. But even after changing the top head and putting on the moon gels, to me it still sounds a bit too bright and papery for rock. Take a listen, see what you think. Now maybe you like that snare sound, and it's fine, but it's not really what I think of when I think of a rock snare. I almost wish that there was some way I could turn the bottom head and the snare springs down so that the top head is more prominent. Well, you can do that in a recording. Obviously, you can mic the top and the bottom and you can attenuate the mix in Pro Tools, but I'm talking about doing it in real life so that when you sit at the drum kit, it sounds that way, or so that it sounds that way out in the audience without any microphones or PA. Now, I actually think I figured out a way to do this. I don't think it's for everyone, but I think it's worth trying out if you like experimenting with your drum sounds. But before I tell you what my hack is, let me explain why I think most snare drums sound like this. So almost every snare drum that you would buy brand new comes with the same type of bottom head. It's usually a super thin head and it's tuned really tight, and that allows the snare springs to vibrate with extreme sensitivity. But to me it sounds thin. It does allow you to do, drum rolls and ghost strokes and all the little details come out through the snare springs, but that's not the sound I'm going for here. That's not, to me, what I think of as the rock sound. So this is a typical bottom head from a snare. This is from a 10-inch snare, actually. Can you hear that? It just sounds papery and thin. So here's my hack. I replace the bottom head with something that you would never normally use. It's a batter head from a tom. Hear the difference in the sound compared to what you would normally have on a snare? Okay, so this is a much thicker head and it's not designed for this purpose. This is kind of experimenting. Well, not for me, I've already done this on several snares, but for you, if you try this at home, this will be experimenting for you to see if you like it. So anyway, I'm going to replace the bottom head on this snare with the batter head from a tom, and you can see what you think with your own ears. See what I mean? Off with the old, and on with the new. Okay, well, the new head's on, and I think it sounds better. So let's have a listen. Now I don't know about you, but to me that sounds much more like a rock snare. The sound that it had before, of course, has a place, and it sounds good, but it's just not what I prefer, and it's not what I think of when I think of rock. It might even be a little bit too much. Like, I'll admit, it is, the snare wires are very attenuated now. So keep in mind, we've gone from a very thin head of about 3mm, which sounds like that, to a much thicker head of 10mm. So if you find that that amount of snare wire attenuation is a little bit too much, it stands to reason that if you use a 5mm head or a 6mm head, your results might be somewhere in between as well. So you can get a range of snare side heads which are dedicated for snares in all different thicknesses. I used a controversial choice here. I used a tom batter head, which is madness, but I like it. I think it sounds cool. So my point is, you can do whatever you want. You don't just have to use a snare head on a snare because it says so on the box or because a salesman told you so. You can use whatever you want, and I'd encourage you to experiment, because you might find something really unusual, and you might find something that you really like. Now, if you're after information on what drum gear or recording gear I used today, including the heads that we talked about, check the description below for a full list. And if you want to learn more about how to make music, record music, and build musical stuff, start now by subscribing below. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye for now.